When I first met Michael, it felt like the world had finally slowed down and landed me exactly where I was meant to be. I was 26, working as a paralegal in a downtown law office, always busy, always tired, and always rushing from one responsibility to another. But then, one Friday night, my friend Rachel dragged me to a small get-together at her cousin's house. That's where I saw him, Michael, standing by the kitchen counter with a bottle of beer in his hand, laughing at something I didn't hear. His laugh was warm and contagious, the kind that made the room lighter. When our eyes met, it wasn't the cliché of fireworks or instant destiny, but it was enough for me to pause and really notice. He walked over, introduced himself, and within minutes we were talking about everything from old TV shows to our mutual dislike of pineapple on pizza. By the end of that night, I knew he wasn't just another stranger at a party. We dated for almost 2 years before getting married in a small ceremony in the backyard of my parents' house. My mom strung fairy lights between the trees, and my dad grilled steaks while my cousins helped set up folding chairs. It wasn't glamorous, but it was perfect for us. At least, it felt that way back then. The early years of marriage were filled with what I thought was the kind of happiness everyone secretly dreamed about. Michael and I bought a little townhouse together. We decorated the living room with secondhand furniture and hung up Polaroids of our vacations and day trips. On Friday nights, we'd order Chinese food and binge-watch crime dramas. On Sundays, we'd drive out of the city, windows down, music loud, and just talk about the future. But the truth about marriage is that time can slowly turn joy into routine. And routine, if you're not careful, becomes a kind of quiet distance. I started noticing little changes. Michael working longer hours at his job in IT, me staying up later than him to finish office tasks on my laptop, both of us too exhausted to talk the way we used to. Then came the jokes. It started out harmless, or at least I told myself it was harmless. I've always been a little sarcastic, the kind of person who uses humor to lighten tense moments. Michael used to laugh at my little jabs, like when I teased him about never folding the laundry right, or about how he could never remember my Starbucks order. It was our thing. But somewhere along the way, the teasing shifted into something sharper, something that didn't land with laughter anymore. One night, we had friends over for dinner. Michael was trying to open a bottle of wine, struggling with the corkscrew. Everyone was watching, waiting, and in the silence I blurted out, "See, this is why I usually open things around here. Michael can fix a computer, but give him a cork, and he's helpless." Everyone laughed, including me. But when I glanced at Michael, his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He brushed it off, kept working at the cork, but the moment stayed with me. After that, I began to notice how often I poked fun at him in front of others. At first it seemed funny, like a silly dynamic where I was the witty wife and he was the good-natured husband who put up with my comments. But the more I leaned into that role, the more Michael seemed to shrink back. I remember one afternoon, Rachel and her fiancé came over. We were sitting in the living room, talking about home improvement projects. Michael mentioned he wanted to try building a new shelf for the garage. Without thinking, I said, "Oh, please, Michael building something? That's just asking for disaster. He's more likely to hurt himself than finish the project." They laughed. Michael chuckled weakly, but later that night, as we brushed our teeth, he said quietly, "You don't always have to make me the punchline, you know." I froze, toothbrush in my mouth, staring at him in the mirror. I told him I was just joking, that he shouldn't take it so seriously. He didn't argue. He just nodded and climbed into bed. The weeks rolled on, and I kept doing it. Sometimes I didn't even realize it until after the words were out. At a barbecue with his coworkers, I joked about how he never remembered to take the trash out, adding that maybe I should just hire someone else to be my husband since I was basically managing the house on my own. They all laughed. But when we got into the car, Michael drove in silence. I asked if he was upset, and he just said, "I'm fine," in that clipped tone that meant he wasn't. Instead of stopping, I brushed it off again. I thought to myself, it's just a joke, people know I love him, it's not that big of a deal. But the thing about words is they collect, like drops of water slowly filling a glass. One drop doesn't matter, 2 drops don't matter, but eventually the glass overflows. The moment everything changed was on our 7th wedding anniversary. I had planned a small dinner at home, nothing extravagant, just steaks, wine, and a cake from the local bakery. Michael came home with flowers, which made me smile. We sat down to eat, and somewhere between the wine and dessert, I made another joke. I can't even remember the exact words, but it was something about how he was terrible at picking out gifts. I laughed. He didn't. Instead, he put his fork down, looked at me across the table, and said, "You know, I think I'm done being the butt of your jokes." I blinked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said slowly, "that I don't feel like your partner anymore. I feel like I'm just some clown you drag out to make yourself look funny. I've told you before how it makes me feel, and you just keep doing it." I tried to laugh it off, tried to say he was overreacting. But his eyes were steady, his voice calm in a way that scared me more than yelling ever could. "I love you, Sarah," he said. "But I can't live like this. It's exhausting always waiting for the next punchline. So unless something changes, I don't think I can stay." My stomach dropped. I promised him I'd do better, that I didn't mean to hurt him, that it was just my sense of humor. He nodded but didn't look convinced. For a little while, I really did try. I caught myself before making comments, swallowed back the sarcastic remarks. But old habits are hard to break, and one night, out at dinner with friends, I slipped again. Michael had ordered the wrong dish by accident, and without thinking I said, "Classic Michael. Can't even get his dinner order right." Everyone laughed. Michael didn't. That was the last straw. When we got home, he packed a small bag. I begged him to stay, told him it was just a silly joke, that it wasn't worth leaving over. But he shook his head. "It's not just the jokes, Sarah," he said quietly. "It's that you don't listen. I told you how I felt, and you kept doing it. A marriage can survive a lot of things, but not being heard. I don't think you realize how much that hurts." And with that, he walked out the door. The days after he left felt like a blur. I kept expecting him to come back, to call, to say he was ready to work it out. But he didn't. Weeks passed, then months, and slowly the reality set in. My husband wasn't coming back. Friends tried to comfort me, saying maybe it was just a rough patch, maybe he needed space. But deep down, I knew. He had given me so many chances, and I had ignored them, laughing it all away until he had nothing left to give. I started replaying every moment in my head, all the times I could have chosen kindness instead of sarcasm, love instead of a punchline.